The gym was buzzing with chatter, laughter echoing off the walls that once held our teenage dreams. Balloons hung limp against the ceiling, a DJ spun throwback tracks, and someone had put up a projector slideshow with old yearbook photos. I'd come to the reunion with my husband, Tyler, thinking it would be a harmless night. A chance to reconnect, to show the people who once whispered about me that I'd built something solid. But the moment we walked in, I felt it. That uneasy energy. His hand was on my back, guiding me toward the bar. But his eyes weren't on me. They were already scanning, searching, landing. And when they stopped on her, I knew. Madison. My best friend since freshman year. The one who'd spent summers at my house. The one who stood next to me on my wedding day holding my bouquet. She was dressed in a fitted navy dress, her smile flashing too wide, too bright. And when her eyes met Tyler's, there was a flicker. Quick, sharp, like a match being struck in the dark. I swallowed it down. Not here, not now. But the whisper had already started in the back of my head. This isn't paranoia. This is real. An hour later, when Tyler excused himself to catch up with some of the guys, I noticed Madison slip out of the room too. Same direction. My stomach knotted. I pretended to laugh at a classmate's joke, excused myself, and walked out into the dimly lit hallway lined with old trophy cases. Voices. Low. Urgent. I edged closer, my heels clicking softly against the tile. "You shouldn't have written me that," Madison's voice hissed. "I had to," Tyler whispered back. I couldn't hold it in anymore. My chest tightened. Written. What did that mean? They broke apart quickly when I rounded the corner, plastering on fake smiles. "Oh, hey, Em," Madison said, her tone airy, too practiced. Tyler coughed into his fist, looking anywhere but at me. I forced a smile, then glanced at Tyler's jacket draped over a chair in the corner. Something in me snapped. I walked straight to it, ignoring their protests, and slid my hand into the inside pocket. Envelopes. Cream-colored, folded neatly. My fingers shook as I pulled them out. "Emily, don't," Tyler started, his voice strained. But I was already opening the first one. The words were written in his handwriting. No mistaking the slant of his letters, the way he looped his Y's. "Madison, every time I see you, I feel like I'm alive again. Emily doesn't understand me the way you do. You're the fire I've been missing." The words blurred as my vision swam. The hallway tilted. My best friend. My husband. Love letters. I could have crumpled right there. I could have swallowed it, tucked it away, told myself to deal with it later. But something hot and electric surged through me. Fury, humiliation, the sharp need to expose them. So I walked back into the gym. Music blared, lights twinkled, and people were laughing, dancing, sipping their drinks. I climbed onto the small stage where the DJ sat, grabbing the mic before anyone could stop me. "Hey, everyone," I said, my voice cracking at first, but then growing stronger. Heads turned. Conversations hushed. I held up the letter. "Seems my husband has been feeling pretty poetic lately." Tyler's face went pale as he pushed through the crowd. "Emily, stop," he barked, his voice carrying panic. But I didn't stop. I read the words out loud, my voice slicing through the music. "You're the fire I've been missing. Emily doesn't understand me the way you do." Gasps erupted. A glass shattered somewhere. Madison froze near the back of the room, her face draining of color. "You wrote that to her?" Someone shouted. The crowd shifted, eyes bouncing between Tyler and Madison like a ping-pong match. Whispered speculation turned into open accusations. "Is this a joke?" Tyler tried, his voice trembling. "She's twisting things." "Really?" I cut him off, my voice steel. "Because I've got more. Want me to keep going?" Silence. Madison stumbled forward, her hands trembling. "Emily, please, let's talk about this privately." I laughed, sharp and bitter. "Privately? The two of you already had plenty of private time, didn't you?" A ripple of shock moved through the room. Old classmates who once barely remembered my name were now leaning in, drinking in every word. I stepped down from the stage, the letter still in my hand, and walked right up to Tyler. He opened his mouth to say something, anything, but I didn't give him the chance. My hand connected with his cheek in a crack so loud it seemed to echo against the gym walls. Gasps again. Someone actually cheered. Tyler staggered back, clutching his face, his jaw clenched in shame and rage. Madison took a step closer, but I shot her a look so venomous she froze. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I didn't collapse. I straightened my shoulders, tossed the letter at Madison's feet, and turned to the crowd. "Enjoy the reunion," I said flatly. "I've got bigger things to handle." Then I walked out. My heels clicked against the hallway tile, my pulse roaring in my ears. Behind me, the whispers grew into a storm. Tyler shouting my name, Madison's sobs, the crackle of scandal spreading like wildfire. But I didn't look back, not once. As I pushed open the heavy gym doors and stepped into the cool Chicago night, one thought burned through the chaos in my head, steady and unshakable. They humiliated me in front of everyone I grew up with. Now it's my turn. I didn't know yet how deep I'd go, how ruthless I'd become. But the vow settled in my bones right then. I would destroy him, and I'd make sure she never forgot the day I burned their secret to the ground. They say the real work of grief starts after the noise dies down, when you're alone with the memories you trusted. For me, the memory that used to comfort was 1,000 small bargains I made without thinking. Late nights drafting presentations while he chased investors, weekends I gave up so he could take meetings, the time I took the promotion that meant longer hours because the company offered us the mortgage I'd been praying for. I thought we were partners. I thought our sacrifices balanced like scales. Turns out I was the one doing the heavy lifting. Tyler and I met when we were 23, both convinced we'd outsmarted the world. He had the charisma. I had the stubbornness to finish what we started. I used a chunk of money I'd inherited from my grandmother, money she'd left for me to go to school, to build a life, to put a down payment on the brownstone that became ours. I told myself it was investment, not charity. I told myself he'd pay me back in stability, in children, in late-night coffee and small mercies. We bought the house in Logan Square. We filled it with a daughter who smells like baby shampoo and curiosity. Lily is 6. She still leaves Cheerios in the couch and sings off-key to whatever's on the radio. She's also why the stakes are nuclear. This isn't some tabloidy revenge plot for me. This is protecting the small person who thinks daddy is a superhero. I'd given up promotions, vacations, and quiet nights because I believed in the family I was building. I'd let 1,000 small indignities slide because the future, our future, looked worth it. Warning signs were there, easy to explain away in the moment. Late dinners turned into late weeks. Passwords started changing. Tyler stopped sharing passwords because, "It's my email, it's work." He became allergic to family photos on his phone. There were offhand comments that landed like cracks. "You worry too much about money," he'd say, like it was a character flaw I could correct. And yet, even with those fissures, I trusted the scaffolding. I wanted to believe the man who kissed my forehead and told Lily bedtime stories still loved us. The betrayal didn't arrive in a single cinematic moment. It landed like a series of small, sharp pebbles that eventually broke the glass. After the reunion, I started to look for proof, because proof is how you stop someone gaslighting you into doubt. I scrolled texts, found receipts that didn't align with where he said he'd been, and, hardest of all, I found letters. Handwritten. Folded like confessions. Written in the handwriting that used to sign our mortgage papers. The practical stakes aren't small. The house. The shared accounts. Lily's schooling. My career momentum that I can't let stall. But the emotional stakes are worse. Trust isn't a thing you rebuild like a fence. It's a whole ecosystem. When it's poisoned, everything that grew in it starts to rot. And then there was Lily. A week after the reunion, she came home from school and said, deadpan, "Mom, Maddie was sitting in Daddy's lap today at pickup. She said it like she was telling me about the weather. Her backpack thumped to the floor. She wasn't looking for drama. She was 5 and literal. I called Tyler, and his voice did that slippery thing it always does when he's trying to smooth an edge. She must mean sitting on his knee, he said. It was nothing. But later that night, my brother, who works a block from their office, sent me a photo he'd taken by chance. Tyler and Madison walking into a coffee shop at midnight, shoulders close, hands tucked together. When your child describes betrayal in the plainest possible language, it's like a verdict. Lily didn't ask me to believe her. She told me what she saw. My brother's photo was the corroboration I didn't want, but needed. That's when the ledger in my head closed. This wasn't an accident, and it wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a choice repeated until it became a life. So I stopped pretending I was shocked in the way other people think of shock. I studied. I cataloged. I made a list of everything that mattered. Lily's future, the house, the paper trail. And then I started to plan. The stakes were no longer abstract. They were the roof over our heads and the bedtime kisses I'd trained Lily to expect. Whatever came next, it had to protect both. The first morning after I started pulling threads, the world we'd built began to fray in tiny, loud ways. Small things you barely notice until they snowball into a landscape you don't recognize anymore. Tyler's first crack came at noon. He had a business lunch at a steakhouse downtown, one of those meetings meant to signal stability to investors. His card declined. The waiter's smile froze, then thinned into an awkward apology. A man who'd been comfortable with other people's money suddenly looked vulnerable as a kid caught stealing gum. He shuffled through his wallet, found an old card with my name on it, and for a moment I imagined the humiliation like a sound. A sharp footstep on an empty stage. That same afternoon, his email lit up with messages he didn't expect. A senior partner at his firm asked to reschedule a pitch because there are questions about the books. His assistant sent a single line. Investors are asking about your account activity. The words were clinical, but they landed like blows. I watched his chest tighten in a photo my brother sent me later. The look on his face when he realized the money pipeline he'd been leaning on had been rerouted. Meanwhile, the letters did what letters do. They traveled. I'd uploaded scans into encrypted clouds not to punish Madison, but to protect myself. But someone on the reunion committee, gossip in their bloodstream, took a blurry clip of me reading the letter and posted it to a private alumni thread. From there it leaked. People started tagging each other. Comments multiplied. A colleague from Tyler's office sent him a screenshot with a single message. "Did you see this?" He stared at the image like it was a foreign language he no longer knew. Madison's fallout was quieter, but faster. She stopped answering calls at work. Her inbox filled with messages full of polite distance. "We need to talk about boundaries. This is awkward, not appropriate." Her supervisor, someone I used to bring wine to during PTA planning, asked for a meeting, and then texted a single blunt line to a mutual friend. "We can't have that kind of drama here." It's funny how fragile social credit is. One private confession turned into a public scar, and suddenly people who'd smiled with her for years found it safer to step aside. At the neighborhood playground, whispers found me like children find puddles. "Is it true?" someone asked, voice low, eyes wide with the pleasure of being in the know. Parents who once invited us over started sending shorter texts, RSVP declines replaced by vague apologies. The woman who used to borrow my sugar called less often. The Instagram captions changed from warm family photos to curated distance. In social ecosystems, proximity is currency. I began to see who I'd been investing in for years and who cashed out at the first sign of scandal. Not everyone abandoned him. My brother, steady, blunt, didn't call me to congratulate me. He sent the midnight photo and then a single pragmatic message. "I've got your back. Don't do anything stupid." My mother, who still loved the idea of a family intact, left me voicemails that read like prayers. "Emily, please be careful." "Lily," she never finished. Her concern was for the child, not the headlines. The financial tremors ricocheted into Tyler's business life faster than I expected. An invoice for a vendor bounced back, flagged as unpaid. The firm's CFO called an emergency meeting. A contractor who'd always accepted late payments suddenly asked for checks up front. Their faith in him slid away the way varnish peels when water gets underneath. Every ripple made him smaller in public and more frantic in private. The texts I ignored multiplied into voicemails I listened to once and archived. His voice was thin, pleading, then furious, then bargaining. He tried to compose messages that sounded like remorse, apologies that could be forwarded as optics. But sincerity can't be faked into timing. His texts read like scripts, and then he escalated in person. It was just after dawn when my brother called me, his voice rough. "Tyler's at Mom's," he said. "He wants to see Lily." My heart dropped into a place I didn't like. I told him to keep Lily inside, to lock the back door. He did both. I told my mother to not open the door under any circumstance. When the next call came, it was Tyler himself. He was outside, his voice breaking the way glass does when you throw a stone. "Em, please. Let me see her. I didn't mean for any of this. I can fix it. I'll fix it. Just, please." There was a rawness there that was new. Not only fear, but the realization he'd miscalculated me. I sat on the edge of my bed, listening, and felt the first real animal flash of satisfaction that comes with watching someone who thought they could run from consequences realize they can't. He wasn't just asking to see his daughter. He was desperate for an audience, for someone to perform contrition for. That need, exposed, animal, urgent, was the shape of the consequences I'd set in motion. It would get louder before it got quiet. And in the quiet that followed, I felt a strange steadiness. The ripples had begun. The invitation came through his sister, which was almost comical. "Come to dinner," she'd said, as if I didn't know it was a setup. A neutral table, a chance for family to talk things out. Translation: Tyler wanted an audience he could manipulate, people who'd soften the edges, maybe shame me into silence. I accepted without hesitation. Not because I wanted reconciliation, but because I wanted him cornered where escape wasn't possible. The restaurant was upscale but not flashy, one of those Chicago places with white tablecloths and servers who glide instead of walk. His family filled the long table, his sister, his father, even a couple of cousins who had no business being there. And at his side, predictably, stupidly, sat Madison, dressed like she wanted to be mistaken for untouchable. The moment I walked in, silence rippled down the table. I took my seat without waiting for anyone to offer it. The server poured water. I didn't touch it. Tyler cleared his throat, performing calm. "Emily, we're all here because we care. This has gone too far. You embarrassed me in front of everyone, and now—" "Embarrassed you?" I cut in, my voice flat, almost bored. "You wrote love letters to my best friend. I just read them out loud." Madison shifted, her hand twitching near the silverware. His father looked down at his menu, as if the words might shield him. Tyler leaned forward, lowering his voice like we were conspiring. "Look, we can fix this. We don't need to drag everyone else into it. If you stop—" I pulled a folder from my bag and placed it on the table. His name scrawled on receipts, hotel bookings that didn't match his calendar, even a few screenshots that showed Madison's number highlighted. I didn't shove them in his face. I slid them across the table like a dealer laying down cards. "Stop?" I said, my voice sharp now. "Tyler, you built this. I'm just handing out the invitations." His sister's eyes darted to the papers, lips pressing into a thin line. His father cleared his throat, finally daring to speak. "Is this true?" Tyler's face flushed. "It's taken out of context. You know Emily, I cut him off again. "Please, by all means, explain the context of booking a suite at the Drake with Madison's initials on the receipt, or the Uber receipts to her building at 2 a.m. Go ahead. We're all listening." The table was silent except for the clink of ice settling in a glass. Madison's face drained of color. She opened her mouth, then shut it again. That's when I leaned back, deliberately calm. You think humiliation is a weapon only you can use. You parade around with her, lie to me, gamble with Lily's future, and still believe you can spin the story. But this, I tapped the folder, isn't spin. This is fact. Madison stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I'm not doing this, she muttered, and stormed toward the exit. Her heels echoed like gunshots in the quiet dining room. Heads from nearby tables turned, curiosity spreading like wildfire. Tyler half rose, torn between following her and salvaging what was left. That indecision was the nail. I didn't raise my voice, but every table nearby heard me. This man wrote love letters to my best friend while spending my inheritance on hotel rooms. That's the kind of husband, the kind of father, the kind of businessman he is. A gasp here, a whispered, "Oh my God," there. Phones slid out discreetly. The humiliation wasn't confined to the table anymore. It spread outward, captured, documented. Tyler tried to speak. His mouth opened, stuttered, failed. His father's face went rigid, the kind of expression that tells you a bond has snapped clean. His sister sat back, crossing her arms, no longer an ally. I gathered the folder, tucked it neatly back into my bag, and stood. Before I walked away, I gave him the line I knew would ricochet. Tyler, the only empire you ever built was on lies. And tonight, it collapsed in front of everyone who mattered. I didn't wait for his reaction. I turned, my heels steady against the polished floor, and walked out. Behind me, the restaurant was a low roar. Servers whispering, diners buzzing, his family stunned into silence. By the time I stepped into the cool night air, I knew the story would already be moving faster than I could. Texts sent, posts drafted, his mistress gone, his family fractured, his reputation bleeding out on the white tablecloth we'd left behind. And me? I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was winning. If humiliation was gasoline, Tyler's instinct was to strike a match. Within 48 hours of the restaurant implosion, he tried to rewrite the story. His first move was a post on Facebook, long and bloated with self-pity. He claimed I was emotionally unstable and had weaponized private marital struggles to ruin him. He painted himself as a dedicated father, a victim of my vindictive smear campaign. Friends and acquaintances reacted the way people always do online. Some clicked sad emojis, others left vague comments like, "Stay strong, bro." But most just watched, waiting to see where the wind would blow. Then came the podcast. A mid-tier local host, the kind of show that thrives on scandal, gave him airtime. Tyler sat there in a blazer he probably borrowed from his dad, voice trembling in rehearsed vulnerability. "I made mistakes," he said, eyes lowered like a penitent schoolboy. "But my wife exaggerated. She's punishing me because I was trying to leave the marriage respectfully." He spoke about co-parenting, about healing. It was a performance, and for a second, I almost laughed. But what he didn't know was that I had already prepared my counterstrike. The reunion video had leaked, but I hadn't touched it. It spread on its own. What I did have, though, were receipts. Literal receipts. Screenshots of hotel bookings, bank transfers to Madison labeled with emojis, emails that read like cheap romance novels. I didn't post them myself. That would have made me look vindictive. Instead, I gave them to someone who didn't owe me loyalty, but owed me truth. Mara, my lawyer. She knew exactly which journalist would salivate over the story. Within a week, an article dropped on a popular Chicago culture site. Local entrepreneurs' double life, love letters, leaked receipts, and a betrayal unfolding in real time. The article didn't editorialize, it just laid out the facts, photos of his handwriting, screenshots of his texts, bank records. Neutral, devastating, hashtags erupted. Letters to Madison, Tyler exposed, memes sprouted overnight. One had a photo of him from the podcast interview with the caption, "When you lie on air but the receipts drop tomorrow." Another was just the phrase "Emily understands" stamped over his face, mocking the line from his letters where he claimed I didn't understand him. His attempt at controlling the narrative collapsed instantly. Instead of sympathy, he became a punchline. Investors pulled out of deals, citing public perception concerns. His father stopped returning his calls. Even Madison deleted her social accounts, her curated influencer lifestyle evaporating under comment floods calling her the other woman. The more he tried to talk, the worse it got. He released a second video, sweaty and defensive, insisting the letters were taken out of context. Twitter users screenshotted the line, "You're the fire I've been missing," and made it into a viral template. People used it to describe everything from pizza rolls to video games. His words became a joke. His face became a meme. I didn't respond publicly. Silence was my weapon now. Every time he shouted, my quiet made him smaller. He raged, and I let the receipts do the talking. The final blow came from someone I didn't expect. His sister. She posted on her Instagram story a single photo of the folder I'd slid across the restaurant table captioned, "Sometimes blood isn't thicker than betrayal." That sealed it. Family siding against him in public meant no redemption arc. By the end of the month, he wasn't just a man who cheated. He was a spectacle, a cautionary tale about arrogance in the age of screenshots. And me? I didn't have to lift a finger. The world finished the job for me. Divorce court isn't glamorous. No soaring speeches, no cinematic gavel drops, just stale coffee, fluorescent lights, and the slow grind of paperwork stripping someone bare. But to me, it was war conducted in daylight, and I'd brought the receipts. Mara sat beside me, calm as a surgeon. Across the aisle, Tyler looked nothing like the man who once bragged about closing six-figure deals. His suit was wrinkled, his tie crooked, eyes ringed with sleepless nights. Madison wasn't there. She'd vanished weeks earlier, ghosting him once the fallout torched her career. The judge sifted through documents. Joint accounts drained, inheritance funds misused, hotel expenses charged to marital assets. Each line was another nail hammered into the coffin of his credibility. I spoke when necessary, but mostly I let the evidence talk. The letters, the bank transfers, the Uber rides at 2 a.m., all cataloged, time-stamped, undeniable. His lawyer tried to argue emotional exaggeration, but numbers don't exaggerate. Paper trails don't lie. The ruling came like a clean blade. Custody awarded to me, child support locked in, the house transferred to my name. Tyler's visitation rights were limited to supervised weekends, contingent on proof of stability. Stability he no longer had. Outside the courtroom, the damage spread like cracks in ice. His father, once his biggest financial backer, cut ties entirely. "You embarrass this family," he told him, loud enough in the hallway for every bystander to hear. "Don't call me again." Tyler stood there, pale and hollow, while his father walked past me with a nod that felt closer to apology than acknowledgement. His brother withdrew the investment capital that had kept Tyler's company afloat. Without it, vendors demanded overdue payments, contractors threatened lawsuits, and employees began jumping ship. One by one, the pillars of his professional life crumbled, leaving him clutching air. Meanwhile, I secured everything that mattered. Lily's future was protected, her school tuition prepaid for years, her college fund locked under my control. The brownstone was mine, no longer a shared battlefield, but a sanctuary. For the first time in months, I walked through its rooms without feeling like an intruder in my own life. Madison's collapse was quieter but equally brutal. Whispers followed her into every room until she stopped showing up at all. Her social media disappeared, her friends scattered, and the job she'd once flaunted evaporated after ethical concerns were raised by management. Betrayal isn't just personal, it stains reputations like ink. She learned that faster than Tyler did. The irony was that Tyler tried, even in freefall, to spin narratives. He texted me after the court ruling, "We can still fix this. Don't do this to Lily." I didn't respond. What was there to fix? The man who gambled with my trust, my inheritance, my daughter's stability, wasn't someone I could reason with. He wasn't a partner anymore. He was a cautionary tale. In the weeks that followed, his decline was visible. Photos circulated. Him leaving bars looking disheveled, crashing on a friend's couch, carrying boxes out of his office after the lease was terminated. Once, he'd walked into rooms commanding attention. Now, people crossed the street to avoid eye contact. I didn't gloat. Gloating is loud, and loud is temporary. Instead, I rebuilt quietly. I put Lily first, built new rhythms into our lives. Bedtime stories without interruptions. Dinners where laughter wasn't forced. The absence of his chaos felt like breathing fresh air after years of smog. The last time I saw him before the final confrontation was outside the courthouse, standing alone, staring at his phone like it might deliver a miracle. His lawyer brushed past him, already moving on to the next case. His father's car pulled away without slowing. He looked up at me, lips parted as if to speak, but no words could. I didn't plan the meeting. It wasn't a staged ambush, no folder of evidence tucked under my arm this time. It happened because endings have a way of demanding their moment. It was a gray Chicago afternoon when Tyler showed up at the brownstone. The house was mine now, legally mine, but he stood on the porch like a ghost haunting a place he once owned. His suit hung loose on his frame, his hair unkempt, eyes bloodshot. For a second, I barely recognized him. I opened the door halfway, not inviting him in but not shutting him out either. Lily was at my mother's, safe, and I wasn't afraid. He didn't have that power anymore. "Emily," he said, voice cracking like glass under weight. "Please, just let me talk." I stepped aside, enough to let him in. The living room was quiet, sunlight slanting across the hardwood floor. He lingered near the couch but didn't sit, like he knew he didn't deserve to. "You look good," he started, fumbling. His hands shook as he ran them through his hair. "Better. I mean, you always looked good, but I don't know. You look stronger." I folded my arms. "Get to the point." He swallowed hard. "I lost everything, Em. The business is gone. My dad won't even return my calls, and Madison—" He stopped, shame flickering across his face. "She left. Said she couldn't handle the pressure. Said I ruined her life. Maybe I did." I didn't respond. Silence worked better than words now. He dropped onto the couch finally, elbows on his knees, face in his hands. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Then louder, more frantic. "I'm sorry for all of it. For the letters, the lies, for making you feel like you weren't enough. You were enough. You were everything. I was just stupid, weak." I watched him unravel. There was a time I would have rushed to soothe him, to smooth the cracks, to play nurse to wounds he inflicted on both of us. But that woman was gone. "You didn't just hurt me," I said quietly. "You gambled with Lily's future. You spent money that wasn't yours, dragged my best friend into your lies, made a mockery of the family we built. Do you know what it's like to explain to a 6-year-old why Daddy doesn't live here anymore?" His head shot up, eyes red and desperate. "I can do better, I swear. If you just give me another chance—" I cut him off, my voice sharp. "Another chance? You had 10 years of chances. Every late-night meeting, every unexplained charge, every letter you thought I'd never find. That was a chance. And you spent them all." He flinched like I'd slapped him. "I love you," he said hollow. "No," I corrected, stepping closer. "You love the version of me that carried your weight. You love what I gave you. Stability, loyalty, my grandmother's inheritance, a home. But love isn't letters to another woman written while I tucked our daughter into bed. Love isn't betrayal wrapped in excuses." His voice cracked. "Then what do you want from me? To crawl? To beg?" He was crying now, shoulders shaking. "Fine. I'll beg. Please, Emily, please. Don't leave me like this." I let the silence hang. His sobs filled the room, raw and jagged. He reached for my hand, but I pulled back before his fingers could touch mine. You already left yourself, I said. The day you chose her. The day you signed receipts with my money to fund your affair. The day you wrote that, I didn't understand you. You left me every time you lied and thought I was too blind to notice. He shook his head violently. I can change. No. I cut in, my voice ice. You don't get to rewrite this story. You don't get redemption just because you're finally scared of being alone. He collapsed back onto the couch, breath ragged. For the first time, he looked small to me. Not intimidating, not charming. Just a broken man staring at the ruins he built with his own hands. I walked to the door, opened it wide, and turned back to face him one last time. You're the architect of your own destruction, I said, each word deliberate. And I'm done living in the rubble. He looked up at me like a man watching a final door close. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. I stepped outside, the cool air hitting my skin like a baptism. Behind me, the door shut with a clean, final click. Walking down the front steps, I felt no triumph, no bitterness, just clarity. His begging hadn't moved me, his tears hadn't swayed me. Because this wasn't about punishment anymore. It was about freedom. And freedom meant never looking back. Me. I walked past, heels sharp on concrete, and didn't turn around. Tyler was broke, isolated, disowned. The empire he'd built on lies and stolen intimacy was rubble now. And I was standing in the middle of it, not ruined, not small, untouched by the dust because I'd learned to stand outside the blast radius. For the first time, I felt something close to peace. 6 months later, the brownstone felt different. It wasn't a battlefield anymore. It was a home. I painted Lily's room the color she chose, sunflower yellow, and let her stick glow-in-the-dark stars to the ceiling. Every night she points to them before bed, reminding me she's still looking up, still finding her own constellations. Our lives rebuilt themselves in rhythms so ordinary they felt miraculous. Breakfast without tension. Afternoons in the park. Laughter that wasn't forced, wasn't broken by the sound of a door slamming or a phone buzzing with secrets. I realized how much noise I'd lived with, and how quiet could feel like peace instead of punishment. Work became my anchor. The promotion I once turned down circled back, almost as if life wanted to hand me the thing I'd given up for Tyler's dream. I accepted it this time. I stopped apologizing for ambition, stopped dimming my light so he could cast a shadow. My paychecks weren't just numbers now. They were proof of survival, of independence, of a future Lily could count on. People still talked about him. They always will. Chicago loves a scandal, and his became folklore in certain circles. But his name doesn't sting anymore. When I hear it, I feel nothing but distance. He's a story other people tell, not one I live inside. The man who once commanded rooms now drifts at the edges of them, broke, irrelevant, his empire reduced to whispers and what-ifs. I don't wish him well, but I don't waste energy on wishing him ill either. He got what he built. Consequences aren't curses. They're math. You cheat, you lie, you betray, and eventually the equation balances itself. The best revenge wasn't the slap at the reunion, or the folder at the restaurant, or the receipts that went viral. Those were sparks. The real fire was this: waking up in a life that no longer revolved around his chaos. Watching Lily thrive. Hearing her giggle spill down the hallway while she FaceTimed her cousins. Realizing I could smile without checking who was watching. Sometimes when I'm putting her to bed, she asks simple questions only kids can phrase so plainly. Mom, are we happy now? And I tell her yes. Because happiness isn't perfect. It's steady. It's knowing the ground under your feet belongs to you, that no one can pull it out again. I used to think betrayal defined me, that it left a scar so deep everyone could see it. But the truth is, betrayal was just the doorway. What defines me is how I walked through it. Stronger, clearer, free. And as I stand at the window some nights, watching the city lights flicker against the skyline, I remind myself of the vow I made walking out of that reunion gym. that I would destroy what tried to destroy me. I kept it. But in the end, the real victory wasn't his downfall. It was my freedom.